时尚跟流行，尝试新的餐厅也要跟流行。那当然，英文单字也有流行的趋势。今天就带大家来听听一个最近常常被拿来用的英文单字。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Today's episode, we're going to cover a word that was probably one of the first things you ever learned in cram school or that your kids are picking up if they're learning English today. And that is the word quiet. But outside of that typical be quiet or it's so quiet in here, what other ways is this being used in a professional manner? Because if you've read the news in the last year, across luxury, across business, across many different industries, this word keeps popping up to modify a lot of different things.
没错，今天要带给大家4种 quiet 的一些不同的用法跟单字。那我们今天收集了平常可能在文章当中或者是一些访问啊 interview 当中你可能会听到的。So we're going to start with the first one, quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting is a term that was in tons of different newspapers and magazine articles in 2022. As people were getting back to work after the pandemic and there was an argument about, should you work from home? Should you go into the office? Does this affect your pay scale? Etc. A lot of people were becoming quite dissatisfied with the way that their wages worked, their work from home policies, etc. And they felt that the companies didn't hear what they were doing. So rather than quit, they were doing something that was termed as quiet quitting, which is basically they would just go on autopilot. They would do what they needed to do to not get fired, but they were not trying to climb the ladder. They were not trying to improve things for the company. They were essentially doing the bare minimum of what was required. This term became known as quiet quitting.
那 quiet quitting 在中文我们也可以解释为安静离职。那当然这并不代表真的他们会离职，而他只是做了工作的最低要求，最低的需求的 bare minimum. So I think when it came about, it's to the Generation Z, they really dislike and reject the whole hustle culture that was placed on them, and they just didn't really want to conform with that. So no more 加班, no more hustling, 然后也拒绝做多一点的事情. So just the bare minimum. So because quiet quitting, 那因为这个字非常的火红，那当然有蛮多不同的一些 phrases 也因为这个字然后也延伸出来了。So the second one we wanted to talk about is quiet hiring.
Quiet hiring was not only a response to this idea of quiet quitting, but also a response to the fact that at the end of 2022 and early 2023, you saw tens of thousands of layoffs in the tech sector, which meant most companies were drastically cutting their headcount, and many managers were left with the inability to hire new people, even if there was a role. So quiet hiring became the idea of looking within your organization, finding the most talented people and just shifting them over. So you may bring new people into your department or into your team, but they're not coming from outside the company. You are quietly hiring them within the company and just moving them around.
I think we kind of talk about this in the episode around the labor market. 有非常多的一些 massive layoffs. 那这个时候有很多公司基本上是 hiring freeze. They cannot actually hire any more people. So all they can do is move people around, trying to be as productive as possible.
Now, this is interesting because this is not a new thing. Almost every company has done this throughout its life. We usually call it a lateral movement, where you're not necessarily moving up a ladder, you're just moving across, say, departments or job functions. But when you have this word like quiet quitting happening, now people want to quickly describe a different way, but still using a term that is really hot right now. So they came up with quiet hiring.
And speaking of which, we also have another one, which is called quiet firing. 那当然 quiet firing 它意思也就是说在讲 managers 可能已经觉得这个员工他的 performance 他已经有点想放弃他 So it's a more like passive way of kind of pushing the employee out of the organization by not really doing much coaching, not much supporting, and just kind of like let them kind of like die on its own and quit on their own.
Basically, it's you're not interacting with that person. You're not providing any of the resources or the mentorship that they would need to go forward in the company. And so in some cases, you just end up with employees that they're just sort of there. They don't really have any kind of critical function. And then a lot of times with the goal where they will just give up. So as you can see, when this concept of quiet quitting became really hot, then everything related to that concept became quiet something. And you'll see trends like these in English quite often.
Now, the last one, which is actually very different. So we're taking out of the labor market, it is quiet luxury. Now, quiet luxury 这个 phrase, 这个标签是近大概这一两个月或在今年算是一个蛮火红的，尤其是在大概这一两个月的时间。Now, quiet luxury, basically, it just, if you think of brands that basically do not slap their labels all over the place, but they make really quality pieces and classic pieces. 那这些我们都可以称为是 quiet luxury.
A really great way to see quiet luxury in action is if any of you have watched the HBO show Succession, or you can look up the trailer on YouTube. It's about a group of billionaires, a family of extremely wealthy people. And one of the things the show has gotten praised for is that no one in the show particularly dresses very flashy. But when the designers of the show chose the clothing, everything that they are wearing is incredibly expensive. These are all brands who have very high price tags, but are also known for creating incredibly quality products. And so the entire show, whether it's their suits to a baseball cap to their shoes, includes these incredibly luxury level goods, but without the flashiness of you know, an LV logo or a Coach logo all over a bag.
And speaking of which, 我觉得可能很多人会想到 luxury brand 都会想到 Fendi, you know, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Prada 这一些品牌，大部分人会想到是 luxury， 但其实最近的这样的趋势来看来，很多人会认为这一些品牌有可能现在已经到了 overexposure 的一个危险性。So they're not exactly the quiet luxury that we're talking about. Quiet luxury brands, 我们通常是在讲 Loro Piana, there is one Brunello Cucinelli, 还有 Zegna, 也就是他做了很多 men's wear, men's suits, they're really known for that. And like Jill Sander, 类似像这样子的品牌，也就是你不会看到它任何的 logo，但是它的做工跟它的布料一定是 top notch.
So in the case of quiet luxury, what they've started to describe is that the opposite of what we call like loud fashion, which is for many of these brands who just put their logo on everything, or they have signature pieces that you could spot like 1 kilometer away. You could be like, yeah, that bag is from this brand. It's about creating looks or creating clothing that it looks very classy, it looks very high quality, but unless you know, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
We hope you enjoyed this shorter episode. This is very much in the line of those of you who follow our Instagram, Communication R&D. We've started to output something we call pro words, which is words that on the surface you should go, I know how to use that word. But now you're going to see a context and a usage that is very different than what you used to understand the word's meaning. And quiet was just a word that is continually popping up these days from the job market function also into luxury fashion, and we fully expect that you're probably going to see quiet put in front and modify a lot of other terms in the next few years. We hope you enjoy this and that you'll join us next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.